Good evening and welcome. We're going to just wait 1 or 2 more minutes to make sure that everybody's joined our in our town hall meeting tonight, but just give us 1 more minute. Good evening. I will begin the meeting, our town hall meeting tonight, and welcome. First of all, we're so happy that we have so many joining us tonight for this informational setting and session with our assistant principals and myself. I'm Jody Brazzi. I'm the principal at Catalina Foothills High School. And I just wanted to state that on this YouTube video, you'll see a response form underneath the YouTube link there, and you can hold before you put in questions because we're going to try to cover many topics tonight, and I'll share that here in just a second. And if we don't cover your questions, of course, we'd love to hear from you. And we can do it tonight, your questions, or again, continue to answer them throughout time. Again, this is to talk about our opening plan for October 26th for those students that would like to return to in-person learning. Again, you should have a lot of information already prior to this meeting from the district about the Catalina Foothills School District plan. And again, there's links to that on the homepage, and we've sent that to you from the high school as well, reminding you that many of the questions or many of the most of the information from the district level is for all schools. But tonight we'll be focusing on the high school reopening plan. So again, if you haven't looked at those links on the district or the high school website about the return to learning, I strongly advise you to do that as you consider your options for in-person or remote learning. Again, tonight you should have received a link from the high school about the in-person or remote learning survey, and we'll get into the information about that tonight. We also know that you have a decision to make on that, and you have till the 14th to make that decision. And again, we want you to have as much information and as much knowledge about that reopening plan as you need. So we're welcoming you to give us emails or calls if we don't answer all your questions tonight. Again, tonight we'll be hearing from several of the administrators here that you see on the screen. We'll do an overview of the Catalina Foothills High School Return to Learning Plan. We'll talk not only about schedules, but scheduling, health and safety, instruction, campus protocols, different programs on our campus like CTE and others, programs that are special or unique to our campus. And so we want to get through all that information. I also want to put out the caveat that we are making all these decisions and making these plans and protocols, putting them in writing and sending to parents as soon as we have more information about the numbers. So again, we have capacity limits in some of the classrooms. And once we have the numbers of students returning to in-person learning, then we'll have some more details when we know how many students are on campus. And of course, everything's subject to change based on health and safety information, what we learn from the surveys on numbers. So we'll continue to monitor and adjust our work at the high school here to make sure that you have the information you need. I'm going to turn it over to Eric Singer for the next portion of the and here, so you see who's presenting tonight and also their roles and responsibilities. So Eric will go first, and he's our 9th grade administrator. Chris Lambert will speak. He's our 10th grade administrator. Ryan Tulsovic, our 11th grade administrator. Jennifer Brock, our 12th grade administrator. And Miss Carrie Burson, who's our CTE director, is here tonight as well. Eric?
So based on our responses to our non-binding survey, our class capacity numbers, and health and safety protocols, at this time, we are planning to have 2 cohorts of students who will be attending in person. Again, this is based on our current understanding of how many students opted for in-person learning in our previous survey, and this is still subject to change. For safety, alignment with other schools in the district, and consistency, we'll be bringing Group A in on Monday and Tuesday, and Group B in on Wednesday and Thursday. On Fridays, all of our students will attend remotely through CFSD Connect, just like they are currently doing on Fridays. And Chris, we can go to the next slide. So you can see our schedule here and what it looks like. So on a traditional 5-day week, we will have our A group coming in on Monday and Tuesday, and our B group coming in on Wednesday and Thursday. Our remote group will be attending remotely throughout, and we'll talk a little bit more later about what those instructional sessions will look like. This information is also on the handout that you should have received earlier tonight along with the survey. So when we are deciding on our cohorts, things that we are considering right now are our class capacity. We are also considering things such as household members. So if your family has 2 students who have different last names that could potentially be in different cohorts, our team is looking at making sure that we align those families before we send out the cohort assignments. We are going to look at last name as well, and try to keep it consistent or as consistent as possible with how other schools in the district are doing it, just so that we can limit the burden on families in terms of things such as childcare and older siblings being available for younger siblings. Again, we're going to do that to the greatest extent possible. Not all schools will be on the same schedules. Other factors that we will determine are our programmatic needs. So at the school, we may have small groups of students that we need to bring in based on other criteria, and we will be grouping them in a cohort, in one cohort, so that we can have the best instructional opportunities that we can. Again, like we said, there will be adjustments based on program needs. We are not going to consider personal preference at this time. And then once the students are assigned, they're going to remain with their group unless we as a school see a need to adjust. And the reasoning behind that is for health and safety and to keep consistency. One of the big questions that we felt we needed to address is what the response to the binding survey was going to mean. So for students who opt into remote learning, what we are looking at is you will continue to be a remote learner for the remainder of this first semester. So there will be about 36 instructional days until the second semester begins. So if you choose remote learning right now, we are expecting that you'll stay as a remote learner for the rest of the semester. However, if we, as we look at second semester, if you are looking at coming back to school, dependent on capacity in all of the classes, there may be an opportunity for a student to come. If you are not able to come because our capacity does not afford us the opportunity to bring the student onto campus, there will be a wait list. And when we talk about capacity, students have 5, 6, or 7 classes. Classes need to be available for all 5, 6, or 7. So if there's not space in one of the 7 classes, unfortunately, you'd be on a wait list until that opportunity arose. If your initial choice is in-person learning, you may move to remote learning at any time. And one caveat to that is if you are an in-person learner and you should be struck with COVID or some other type of long-term illness, if you are still able to attend remote, you can attend remote. However, when you are ready and cleared to come back to school, you would not lose your in-person learning seat. You may choose at that time to move to fully remote and continue remote learning. That will be a family decision. However, once in the first semester, you make a choice. So if you start as remote, you're going to stay remote. If you start as in-person and move to remote, you will not be able to transition back for the remainder of the first semester. Mr. Lambert. In order to maintain consistency with what we're doing now, we chose to stick with the same bell schedule. So students will have all 7 classes each day. Monday through Thursday, the bell schedule will stay the same as it currently is. And on Fridays, we'll continue to do a late start, and we'll have the abbreviated day on Fridays. Again, we have talked about that Fridays will be our CFSD Connect. They'll be asynchronous. No students will be on campus on Fridays. So we will maintain that schedule unless there is a short week. If we have a week that has 3 days, we will adjust it so that each group comes onto campus for 1 day, and then we would have a fully remote 3rd day. If we have a 4-day week, students would come onto campus 2 days. Both groups would come onto campus 2 days, and we would eliminate the short week or late start schedule. All right, I think we're good, Mr. Lambert. Ms. Brock, were there questions that I can answer?
Yeah, so one was, would you consider cross schools? So if my student went to Orange Grove or Manzanita, would you consider that in the schedule to keep them together?
Yeah, so we have worked with the middle school to align as much as possible. Their asynchronous day or their late start day is on a Wednesday. Ours is on a Friday. So we are going to do our best to group families across schools to the greatest extent possible. We do know we have the access to students who are in other schools, so we do know who siblings are, and if we are able to align that, we are going to do our best to align that. And I should say there are schools that do not align with our schedules within the district.
So you had mentioned that you can opt to go to remote once and then not come back into the semester if there was space. What if a student was not following the protocol and they were put in remote? Then what would happen in that situation?
So if a student was not following, can you expand on that a little bit more? Is there more information, Ms. Brock?
Like not wearing a mask.
Yeah. So what we have learned through this process that if a student is going to choose not to wear a mask, then they do have an option to participate in our classes, and that is remote learning. So we are expecting masks to be worn. That Mr. Lambert will talk a little bit more about that. If students are not honoring the protocols on campus, we'll follow our discipline procedures as we have in the past. And if students are continuing to not follow our expectations on campus, one consequence could be losing the opportunity to attend in person. And if that student then lost that opportunity to attend in person, the administrative team and wanted to come back, the administrative team would review the case.
I think that's it for right now for this section.
Thank you. Mr. Lambert.
Good evening. My name is Chris Lambert, and I'll be talking about health and safety tonight. A lot of what's on this page that you're looking at is detailed in pretty great detail on the district's website. They have both a full mitigation plan and a separate FAQ page that has quite a bit of information, technical details, and a lot more specifics than what we're going to be able to get into tonight. So for tonight, we're just going to talk briefly an overview of what we're going to be doing on campus to promote health and safety. Obviously, the number one thing we're doing is requiring all students and staff to wear masks while they're on campus. Not every minute of the day, of course. People have to be able to take drinks of water and eat lunch, and we'll get into those situations in a little bit. But pretty much while a student is in a classroom, they're expected to wear a mask at all times. The second thing is limited capacity, and Mr. Singer's already explained a little bit about that. We're operating at reduced capacity in each classroom. The typical size classroom on our campus will have about 14 students in it. Normally, our classrooms have up to 28 to 30 students. And some of our other programs, fine arts, PE, those class sizes may be a little larger because those spaces are bigger. But in a typical classroom at our school, we're looking at no more than about 14 students. And then the reason why it's 14 is because we are trying to get as close to 6 feet of physical distance between students as possible. And again, one of our most typical size classroom that you'll find in all 4 of the houses at our school. We can do 14 and maintain 6 feet of distance between students. A new thing that's coming that's wonderful is that every classroom will have a wall-mounted, permanently mounted hand sanitizer dispenser, and as well as we will have them in lobbies, in each restroom, and several in each hallway, both upstairs and downstairs in each building. So that there will be hundreds of hand sanitizer dispensers permanently affixed to the walls of these classrooms so that students and teachers can use them at any time. Signage, we're going to be putting up quite a bit of signage to remind students and staff of safety protocols, of directions, of how to keep safe, how to keep apart. We'll have signage for restrooms. We'll have signage for how we want students to walk up and down the stairs, which is to keep distance when at all possible. We do realize that when students are not in a physical classroom, they inevitably will be closer than 6 feet at times, but we want to have those signs up as a reminder of best practices. One other thing we'll be doing, and we did look at the bell schedule a moment ago, even though our bell schedule will not be changing officially, we are going to build in an extra 5 minutes to each passing period to allow for some cleaning time, for extra time for students to pass to their next class, as well as for teachers and students to use the restrooms and have them a little bit less crowded than normal. So we will be ringing a special bell 5 minutes before the end of each period and allowing students to exit their classrooms in a more leisurely way to avoid crowding on the stairs and in the lobbies of each building, to have a little more time outside for fresh air and to take a break from class, and then they'll proceed to their next class. So really, we're almost doubling the passing time that we normally have had at the high school. In terms of sharing of supplies, that we're going to limit that as much as possible, particularly in terms of technology. Students normally at the high school are used to using sets of computers in their teachers' classrooms that are in a cart. Usually there's about 30 computers in a cart. That will no longer be the case. And we'll talk about that on the next slide, a little bit more about the technology expectations. But whenever possible, students will not be sharing common technology or items or supplies at this point. On the FAQ and mitigation plan, there's a very lengthy description of how the district is increasing ventilation in the classrooms and in each building on campus. There are some technical specifics that are mentioned there. This particular part of the plan has been guided and directed by our facilities director and our staff this is their specialty. So you can find out more details about ventilation on our website. There will be increased ventilation. We will be bringing in more outside air. We will be allowing teachers to prop their doors open when classes are in session so that they can get, people don't have to touch door handles and surfaces as much as possible. Deep cleaning. So there will be deep cleaning each night by a professional cleaning company that we've worked with in the district for many years. They'll be coming into the school and doing a more thorough cleaning than typical. And then we will be cleaning during the day whenever possible. We did learn recently that students are not going to be allowed to help with the cleaning. We really don't want students touching the cleaning products or being around them if they're being used. And so that would be up to our staff if and when they are possible to do it. We can't guarantee that each classroom will be cleaned between each period of the day, but we're going to have our staff will do their best to clean as they can. The supplies in each room. Each classroom will be outfitted with spray disinfectant, paper towels, the hand sanitizer, some gloves for the teacher, as well as some wipes. So there will be plenty of access to cleaning equipment in each classroom on the campus.
Oops, back up one, Chris. So I'm just going to talk a little bit more about some procedures on campus here for our students when they come, arrival and departure, and then accessing buildings. We're waiting again on these numbers, and once we see how many students are coming, we think we're going to be able to handle arrival without having to give designated times, because we have students that will be driving themselves. We'll have parent drop-off, and we'll also have the buses pulling in each morning, as well as staggered as they pull in. What we will do is open all the gates to walk into the main part of the campus. Typically, in a regular school year, we open just a walking gate so that there's a smaller opening for students to walk onto campus. We will open the bigger gates. We have enough staff to supervise that, to make sure that's our students coming on campus as they walk into campus. Again, they can come through the south side of the campus, the track or where the athletic fields are. That end of the campus will be open for access for students to come in from that direction, and also the front of the campus here. And same with departures. We have students that are on different schedules with their bell or their class schedule. And most of our upperclassmen have that last period where they're free and they're departing sooner than the freshmen and sophomores on a typical day. So again, we're going to monitor that. If we need to set up more structures for arrival and departure, we will. But we think we're going to be able to manage that with fewer students on campus with this A-Day, B-Day cohort, and some students at home doing remote learning 100%. Access to the buildings, again, we're going to do, and Mr. Lambert alluded to this, during a passing period or before the bell rings, we'll have doors propped open to the building so that every student doesn't have to touch the handles. We'll have adults that will make sure that happens. Then once all students are in, they'll close the doors so they'll on the outside of the building so that they're not open all day long, but just for those walking into the buildings and then leaving the buildings during passing periods. Again, Mr. Lambert talked about passing periods again, but we want students to step outside, get some fresh air, and have time away from the screen too, and get outside of the classroom and the teaching and learning. So that's part of that built-in time. Eating and drinking in class is probably not going to happen like it used to, where students could take a quick drink or eat a snack during a class period. If they have a medical condition, we'll probably have them step outside of the room. So of course, we'll make allowances for what's needed. And we do want students to drink a lot of water so they can step out of the classroom, take their mask off, have a drink, and then come back into the classroom. But we'll have protocols for that. They'll also have to carry a water bottle to school. Our drinking fountains will be turned off as far as just getting a drink out of the fountain. But they all have bottle fillers. And so those drinking fountains, that part is on. So students can fill a bottle. It's a touchless system. You put your water bottle on the surface and it will fill automatically. So again, there's water opportunities, and we do encourage students to bring water bottles to school. Restroom breaks, again, will be happening like they've always done throughout a class period or during their passing period. But we're going to ask students to really pay attention. If they walk in and there's already a couple students in the restroom, they'll step out, wait, and then when somebody exits, they can enter. So again, as Mr. Lambert pointed out, there'll be signage, and there'll also be protocols that will train or share with the students. Actually, our student council is going to put together a video, and again, we'll put things in writing as well about those protocols. We did want you to know that we will have students still wear IDs on campus. We want to make sure that they are our students and they belong on campus and they're on an A day or a B day when they're on campus. So at some point that first week of school, when we're back in person, we will have new photos taken for those that are here in person. So they have a current ID. We know that they still, if they were here last year, they have last year's ID, and we have that photo, so we could use that photo as well. But parents will be notified and students about what that looks like, and also our remote learners, what that will look like if you want a new photo taken, and how we bring you onto campus at different times of the day or in the evening to make sure that happens. So again, it's not a have to if you're a remote learner to have an ID, but the students that are coming on campus, we will create an ID and get that to you.
In terms of lunches will look a little bit different than they did last time students were here. Students are used to going in, if they buy lunch on campus, they go in and they grab the food that they want, and the food is sitting under heat lamps, and it's warm and it's right there. From now on, we'll have grab and go stations, 6 to 8 of them is what we're hearing, and they'll be spread out throughout both the inside of the cafeteria as well as the plaza. We also have a food truck that the district has purchased that will be set up on the plaza. That's a much larger serving point. So students will have a lot of access to get food if they choose to purchase food on campus, and it will be packaged, grab and go. It's not pre-packaged in terms of it's still going to be produced here and made on campus. It's just going to be not exposed to the air and open like it was in the past. If people choose to sit inside the cafeteria, we will have the tables physically spaced, and there will be plexiglass barriers on the tabletops, almost like X's, so that students, if they do sit at a table together, will have a bit of privacy with a little plexiglass area that's protecting them from people nearby. We do hope that most students will choose to spend most of their lunch period outside. The weather is changing, it's getting nicer, and throughout most of the winter, it's a nice time to eat outside. So we will open up additional spaces outside that aren't normally open for lunch. The upper concourse near the stadium, where students typically gather during football games, that's a space that will be open for students to have lunch there. There's trees there, there's tables as well for shade. And we have purchased quite a few pop-up tents, benches, and additional areas, shaded areas that students can sit will be available. So again, as we go into the winter, the hope is that students will choose to be outside as much as possible. Of course, we have Falcon Park as well. But for those who do want to eat inside, that will be possible, but the tables will be distanced. To go back to the point on technology, in terms of students using devices on campus, we will ask that every student have and bring a device that they carry throughout the day to all their classes. The main point of this is that students are still going to be using Google Classroom primarily to submit assignments and follow along with the teacher's instruction. So again, normally students are used to taking a laptop and returning it to a cart in each of their class periods throughout the day, but that won't be the case anymore. Students can bring a device that you own from home, and you can use our guest network to log on. Or if you don't have access to your own device, you can still check one out from us. That can be done at any point. We are open Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, and you can come into the school, check in at the front office. They will direct you to House 2, where we have a tech office, and we will check you out at Chromebook that you can use for the rest of the year. We would like you to make that decision fairly quickly, whether you're going to bring your own device or whether you need to get one from us. We won't be checking them in and out on a daily basis. So if you do need one, you can check one out at any time, but we would expect that you would keep that for the next season of time.
I'll just add to that, Mr. Lambert, before we go into questions, that we know that you might have to charge your device as well. So part of that technology carrying it on campus will be to bring your charger if you need it. Hopefully you won't have to charge your device all day long or each period, but if it does run low, we want you to have that option. We will not be providing chargers.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions about buses. I think you mentioned it, Ms. Brazzi, but people have some questions about bus schedules and who rides the bus, is the bus morning and afternoon, things like that.
Yeah, and I'll put it in the Falcon Flyer tomorrow, but the district did just update some transportation information. You could see it tonight, actually, on the CFSD 16.org website about transportation. It's in there. On the buses, they will do half the capacity. So if a bus typically rides 60 riders, that will only, they'll make sure they look at routes and have about 30 riders or less on the bus, and they'll be staggered in the seating. And so that's, again, explained on the website, and I'll send it to everybody tomorrow as well. The bus pickup spots have not been determined yet because, again, it's just like if we were during the summer right now, until we know the ridership, who's coming to school and on what days, and then they'll create the stops and the schedule. So you can predict if you're going to ride the bus, and if you rode the bus last year for the high school, with our 8:30-ish start time, the times of pickup will be about the same as they were last year. And again, 20 minutes or 30 minutes before the school day starts, you'd be picked up at your spot and brought to the school. So just like our school, that the other levels are starting with in-person as well. So we always have transportation for the middle schools first. They start at 7:30. Then the elementary schools, they start at 8, and we start approximately at 8:30. So again, those schedules will be sent to you directly from the Durham Bus Company about your exact pickup location and your exact time you'll be picked up. Also, then when you return, they'll have a time for end of the day delivery back to your stop, what time that will be. So very specific information coming from Durham and the bus company.
Okay, so will there be social distancing and monitoring during passing period and lunches? And if so, who will be doing that monitoring?
Again, we'll have, we can't guarantee that there'll be 6-foot distancing. That's what we're asking students to do, and that's what we will continue to request. We will have several monitors throughout the campus all day long during passing periods to monitor that and help students remember that. But again, we're all the human nature, adults and students tend to gravitate towards each other, and we'll just continue to monitor and request that. When you ask who, we have classified staff members, and we also have administration and our counselors that are going to be very visible with that kind of supervision during the school day, throughout the school day. So we can't guarantee it, and so there's always that caveat, but we're going to strongly encourage it or try to help enforce that. But that's the hardest part. Even if you walk into a grocery store or a shopping store, you see adults and students or children that stand closer than they should when they don't know each other. So again, we'll have signage, we'll have footprints on the ground for the restroom lines and in the cafeteria to make sure that they do the 6 feet and when they're waiting for something. But again, we can't guarantee it every minute of the day, but we'll do our best, and there will be lots of supervision and monitoring. Thank you.
And just 2 more. So who will be monitoring in the classroom? Is that the teacher's responsibility? And then on that note, what is being provided to protect the teachers in terms of their health and safety?
Mr. Lambert, you want to take that one?
Sure. In the classroom, the primary person responsible for what goes on in there is the teacher, definitely. A lot of our teachers are going to mark off spaces on the floor using tape, and the desks or workstations will be physically distanced. And so those it'll be like a grid almost on the floor. That'll help students know kind of their boundaries of where they are supposed to go and not go while they're in a classroom. In terms of, what was the second part of the question?
What protection is being provided for the teachers' safety?
So the teachers, of course, will be wearing masks as well, and their desk or workspace will also be 6 feet away from students. Teachers will, if they choose, can wear a face mask and a face shield if they'd like. Some teachers will be requesting plexiglass shields for their desks. Others don't need that, don't feel like that's necessary. And that brings up a good point. Some of our teachers are feeling a little bit more comfortable with this than others, and that's okay, as that reflects what's going on in the world right now, and we all have different feelings about that. So some of our teachers will primarily be teaching from a spot where they remain 6 feet away from students, and in some cases that'll be behind their desk. Others will set up their center in the middle of the classroom. Others are maybe a little bit more comfortable moving around the room a little bit more, and we're okay with that. We're just thankful that we can have students come back at all at this point, and that we're able to distance them and do the best we can to keep them safe.
I think that's all on this topic. I think a lot of the questions that are listed under health and safety we'll get to later. So. Okay, so I'm Jennifer Brock, and I'm the assistant principal over 12th graders. I'm going to talk a little bit about attendance during this period, and also instruction. So one important piece that we want to convey is that if a student selects an in-person choice, so they're coming to campus on the days that Mr. Singer talked about, AABB, and they somehow, for some reason, need to stay home, they're sick, or something happens, they will be considered absent, and parents will need to follow the attendance protocol that we have in place currently for our school. So calling in sick to the attendance line, and then the student will follow the regular makeup procedures, however that looks per teacher. So if a student is not able to log in via remote learning or come on their scheduled day, then they will need to call in sick. Now, the caveat to that is a student cannot choose to come, say I'm a Monday, Tuesday student and I'm sick, I'm not able to come on Wednesday, Thursday to make up those days. So it's just important that we follow our normal attendance procedure and policy. We also will still be adhering to those 9 days of absences that we're currently following to meet the state requirements. So instructional environment, I know there was a lot of questions about this, so I'll do my best to answer them as I go. And then if I miss any, I'll go back and look at the questions. Our in-person learning experience that we will start in a couple of weeks will be very different from that we're used to pre-COVID. Collaborative groups are going to look a lot different. Our teachers have been doing a great job thus far with putting kids in breakout groups on Google Meets and doing a really good job with collaborative groups. And we hope that this continues. We're not asking students and teachers to get in groups on campus in a close way and work like they used to before COVID. Same with the interaction with teachers. So as teachers, we're really used to walking up and down the aisles and getting close to students and looking at their papers and giving them feedback. That's going to look a lot different. Teachers may be teaching from the front of the room most of the time. You know, like Mr. Lambert said, different teachers have different comfort levels. So physical proximity to the teacher will be a little bit different than it was before. Something that's really great that we're really excited about is the district has purchased these cameras and an integrated technology system to enable teachers to teach both in person and to the remote students at the same time. So that's something that's really exciting. I know there was a lot of questions in the chat or in the responses about how will it look if I'm at home versus in person. So basically, students will be doing 4 days of learning. So if you're an A student and you're on campus on Monday, you're in class. If you're a B student, you're watching the same class from home. So students will be engaged in learning all 4 days of that week. And then with Friday, like Mr. Singer said, being asynchronous. The district has also purchased some microphones for teachers that will plug into their computer so that they can be heard easily. Because we realize that there is some sound barriers with masks and things like that. So let me kind of talk about the 4 days of instruction again, get a little bit more into that. So like I said, if you're in person on Monday and Tuesday, you come to school, and then Wednesday and Thursday, you watch the live lesson from home. So everyone goes to every class every day, just as you are, or following a 7-period day. The difference is there's no more live days. So every day you're quote unquote live. And then again, every student will attend an asynchronous lesson on Friday. And then we're trying our hardest not to switch schedules. I know that was a lot of people had a question about that. So our goal is to not switch student schedules, and that's why we opted to do this A-B rotation so that we can keep students in their same schedules with their same teachers. So we're really trying our hardest to do that. If anything, we would switch a student from an A day to a B day to accommodate them having the same teacher. So if I was in a pre-calc class and I'm an A student and 15 kids opted for that day, but on the B day there was only 6, then if my schedule could remain the same, I could go to the B day. So that would be an instance where we would change just the A or the B day. But again, we're trying really hard not to change teachers or schedules as best as we can. Okay, Mr. Lambert, can you go to the next slide?
And did you have other questions, Jen, that you wanted to talk about it? Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay.
So while she waits on those questions, a little bit more about this camera system. It's pretty neat. These are almost robotic cameras that are motion tracking, and they follow the teacher around the room wherever they go. There's also presets that if the teacher pushes a button, then the camera will zoom right onto a certain board or the clock or another part of the room very quickly. We've had a couple of teachers demonstrate these already and become experts at them, and they're very neat. And so for those of you that are at home still, it will feel a little bit like you're still sitting in front of the teacher watching them do their thing. So we're excited to roll that out. Most of our teachers are about to come and pick one up for the first time here in the next few days. We'll have some training for them to get them caught up to speed on that, and it'll be a nice experience.
Yeah, and one thing I did want to bring up is that, this is a different schedule than the students have now, and we do realize that it does mean it looks like it could mean increased screen time for the students at home, because now they're only doing 3 classes basically live a day. So this is asking students to do 5, 6, 7 classes live a day. So hopefully, they take advantage of that 10-minute passing period. And we did let teachers know that it's not going to be 45 minutes of straight lecture on camera. So if the students have work time, it's fine if the teacher tells them to turn off their camera and do their work like they would in class. So we don't expect our teachers to lecture for 45 minutes when they're in person. And so we're not asking that when they're remote as well. So one of the questions had to do with assessments, and that's something that we are still working on. So the fairness of assessments, if we're giving an assessment on a Monday and half the classes at home and half the classes in person, there's an equity piece to that. And so we realize that is something that we need to figure out. And so the department chairs and our team and everyone that's working on this plan, we're working on that, and we will have an answer and an equitable plan before we come back in person. I think that is all on this section. So I'll talk about this slide a little bit, programs and CTE. So we have a lot of CTE classes in different programs such as band and theater and choir on campus that are very unique. And the teachers that are doing these classes and teaching these classes have been super creative in how they're delivering the lessons to the students. And overall, they're very successful. So they're going to continue their creativity and how they deliver lessons and how they teach their content just as they would in a normal class. So they're going to continue that. And individual teachers, so if a student is in choir or band, then the individual teachers of those programs or classes will share the adjustment. So when it's safe to come back and practice band in person, the band teacher will communicate that. But if you have any questions specific to a program, such as band, choir, guitar, theater, we do ask that you contact the individual teachers because they're different. Their plans are all different. And so we want that information to come from them because they know best how their program will look moving forward.
And just to add to that, Ms. Brock, is that we will provide outside spaces for these groups as well. We know, of course, we've studied the health and safety of singing and choir and instruments in band. And so we're taking all of those same precautions that we are reading about and want to implement in those classes as well. We have more face shields and some different things for the choir students. And again, theater is another one that's going to, make adjustments and how much can they work in the scene shop and work with materials and put on performances. So there might be some more virtual performances. There might be more, you are allowed to invite 2 guests to a performance instead of big group gatherings. So speaking of that, we are limiting still. We're not doing any group gatherings at this time. And so we will continue to add to that when the health and safety factors allow. But we do want to be cautious and we want to be careful with that. The other thing with band is when we're 260 students in that group or more, and we only have 3 or 4 teachers, we can't gather that many together with that number of adults. So as we get to the in-person learning, I know Ms. Shane Boyd has plans and she knows how she's going to move forward with this, with gathering smaller groups of students on campus for rehearsals and practices. So just stay tuned. We want this to happen sooner than later, but we've got to move cautiously and slowly with those activities and gatherings.
So I think there's just a couple more questions. One of them had to do with the students that are at home. How will the teacher see them? And so I can answer that for a couple of classes, because I know in the math department, at least, teachers project, right now, they project the students that are at home on their smart board, the Versa board, and so they can see the students that are at home right now. And then I know, as far as, when they come back and there's half the students in the classroom, they might need to use that board to teach. So they might just have to use their computer to look at the students that way. So in terms of how they see the students, it's really a teacher by teacher decision and what they're comfortable, how they're comfortable doing that.
But speaking of that, though, Ms. Brock, engagement still will be looking like it is. Students at home will still be asked to be engaged in the learning. They'll ask to be getting into groups. They'll ask to be present material. They'll be called on live with questions. So if a teacher asks a question, it's not just the students sitting in the classroom. The students at home are part of that class. So we're treating this as everybody's in this one class, just like you've been with remote learning, and we're teaching to the whole group of 30 or 28 or 14, whatever is in that class already. You're all a part of that class. So you'll be expected to participate, engage, break into breakout groups, whatever is asked by the teacher to participate. So we want not only, we want the remote students because we're going to have many that connect students to be part of this class and function at a high level.
That was the next question, actually.
Oh,
so
sorry.
That's fine. Somebody asked, how will they know that if they're an A or a B student? And we will, as soon as the survey is finalized, we will work on that. And I believe the parents will get notified by October 22nd, parents and students, as to what group you're in. And I think that's it for this section. I'll keep going through, and if there's any more that I missed, we'll answer them at the end.
All righty, good evening. My name is Ryan Tulsick. I oversee the juniors, 11th graders, and I'm also the athletic director. Just to provide you information about parking, all information is located on the CFHS webpage. Forms are available now. We have uploaded those, and they're available now for juniors and seniors to start filling out the proper paperwork. The paperwork would be then taken to the bursar's office like years past. This semester, we have prorated the fees for first semester based on the number of days that we're attending school, which is the 36. Second semester would also be a different charge based on the full semester, or however many days we do attend in second semester, based on the metrics and the safety and healthy well-being of our students and our school being open. Jumping ship to athletics and activities, all AIA activities have begun a phase-in process. We started that process on September 21st, which is a low risk, a phase 1 type activity. We're starting to move into different phases. It's based on a program's needs, and we have different programs participating in sports right now. So golf looks different than football. Cross country looks different than volleyball. So we're working in our phasing processes to ensure the safety and well-being of our student athletes, and our coaches are our #1 priorities. Other co-curricular activities, as appropriate, will begin in person when we come back October 26th. Those other co-curricular activities, non-AIA activities, would be working with Mr. Lambert closely to ensure that they're ready to. They have a plan in place to offer the same safety and well-being for our students as we open up our activities for our students. Like I said, our #1 priority is to ensure the safety and well-being of our students, our teachers, our athletes, anyone that's involved, our classified staff, to run these programs and activities for our students.
Just a couple more words on student clubs and activities. We have nearly 20 different student clubs and activities that meet on campus. All of them that have met in the past are getting up and running for this year. For the moment, they're meeting virtually using this exact platform, Google Meet. But as we transition back in person, student clubs, activities, academic competitive teams will be able to resume in-person gathering and practice with the appropriate safety measures in place. But things like academic decathlon, science Olympiad, chess, we have just a whole variety of speech and debate. There's so many that are going on here. Also, student-led clubs can come back into meetings at that time as well that are on any topic kind of that students are interested in, as well as there's a whole host of CTE and JTED program-specific after-school organizations that will be coming back as well. And Ms. Burson, did you want to speak to anything with CTE or JTED since we were on that slide just a moment ago?
I would like to speak to the clubs such as DECA, HOSA. Typically, these are competitive clubs and we travel. Travel will not resume until further notice. Any competitions at this point in time have been set up to be virtual. So our students will still be preparing for a virtual spring competition. If that changes with the metrics, we will let you know, but that's the plan at this point.
Mr. Tulsovic, could you talk about if I'm a remote learner, what's my access to athletics?
Yes, absolutely. If you're a remote learner or in-person learner, everyone has access to athletics. You'd have to come on campus, you have to fill out the physical paperwork that's found on the athletic webpage. If you're a returning athlete, there are certain documents that we are requiring. If you're a new athlete, a freshman or a new athlete to the district, there's another set of documents that you would complete. I think the athletic page is well laid out for you to follow the instructions of what's needed. But anytime you can always reach out to myself or House Floor Secretary Sarah Welker to ask questions so we can help you guys get the proper documentation in order for your student athlete or your student to participate in athletics. So.
So, Mr. Tulsovic, I don't know if I was looking at the questions, but can you just specify parking, who's eligible to park and how?
Of course, yes, thank you. Right now, juniors and seniors, we anticipate there might be some potential openings for sophomores that could purchase tickets. At this time, we won't know that until we know how many remote learners versus in-person learners are coming onto campus. But further communication with that will come out as soon as we know numbers and as far as allowing juniors and seniors to purchase their permits first. I will say that sophomores would be a first semester, the remainder of this first semester permit only, being as if we go back full, then obviously juniors and seniors would then have access or have the upper hand in a sense of getting that permit for second semester. So.
Okay, thank you. I think that was it for your spot. Do you want to move to general questions now?
Sure, we can go to general questions, Jen. Thank you.
So one question was, because the freshmen have not been on campus or had a chance to walk the campus, will there be some type of orientation?
I'm not sure, Eric or Chris, if you would like to handle that with Link.
Yeah, so traditionally we would have the Link crew working with our ninth graders to get them oriented to the campus. We've begun discussions about what that might look like, and we will communicate out to families as soon as we have a plan. And we're just trying to coordinate that and to see who would be available, what would be the best time to bring ninth graders on, just so that they have a chance to experience the campus and feel out where their classes are, because we traditionally have that experience. It would not be the same experience that we had done in the past with our Link crew, where it's a four-hour experience, half-day experience. It would be an abbreviated experience, and we're just working on plans for that. But once we know what students will be in person, we'll be able to coordinate something like that.
Okay, so I have a student that's picking to come to school. What are the advantages of sending my student to school if the curriculum will be the same at home? And will it be the same?
Ms. Brock, did you want to handle that one or do you want?
Sure, I can.
I can too, so I just didn't want to step on your toes.
So, it's a personal decision to send your student to school. So the curriculum that they're getting at home is going to be the same as in person. Obviously, it will be different. An in-person experience is different than an at-home experience. So it just depends on how your student learns and your preference and how the student feels about coming to campus. I think, that's a personal decision. But as far as the curriculum goes, it will be the same.
Mhm.
We will follow the same state standards, the same CFSD curriculum. The teachers will be teaching to the same high level. The students will still be, doing the rigorous activities and things like that. So the curriculum question is, it will be the same.
And I think one of the biggest differences is screen time, and we brought that up earlier. If you're in person, you'll be looking at a teacher and you'll be looking at a board and you'll be looking at other students in the classroom live or in person, physically being there. At home, of course, you'll be doing what we're doing now with remote learning is all your work will be done on the computer screen. And so again, I think you have to put health and safety first and your feelings for your family decision about that first. But if you're neutral or you're not sure, to me, those would be the differences with in-person versus remote learning. Getting up, walking the campus, moving around between classes, and then the screen time would be less. You might be working on a Google Doc, but not following the teacher on the screen. You'd be following them physically when you're in the classroom differently.
So another question has to do with picking in-person versus remote. Is there preference given to in-district students, and how will we determine if more students apply for in-person than we have space? How is preference given? Questions about a wait list, things like that.
I'm happy to address that. So once you're our student at Catalina Foothills High School or any of our schools, you're our student. So we never look at who's open enrollment or who's in the district. You're our students. And so again, all of you will be treated the same as far as selecting in-person learning. If we had 50% of you choose remote learning, we can divide you up easily between A day, B day, even if we had 80% of students in person. If we had 100% of students in person, it would get complicated with an A day, B day, just because, again, if we had 30 in a class, we couldn't have 15 and 15. So again, we're not anticipating we'll have 100% in person and have to divide that up. But we definitely feel like once we get this information and have 80% or less students in person, we can make this work with 14 or fewer in a classroom, either on an A day or B day. So we're very fortunate. Our STEM integrator, Mr. Robinson, he's an expert at creating documents like this, but he's created a spreadsheet like no other. And all your names will go into that spreadsheet and calculate which periods and classes and how many students can be in each of those rooms, specific rooms. So if it's 6 students in this room or 14 students or 15 or 17 because of a bigger space, all of that is calculated and we'll tumble all that in there. And we feel very confident we'll have an easy job of sorting and getting kids balanced in each of those areas and not have it overbooked with the number of students in the classroom. So again, it's a puzzle. And I said, sometimes it's very difficult when you're not given all the puzzle pieces to put it all together. So we're working on getting all those pieces and getting your survey results back by the 14th. Will give us that time to do that. And you can see on the slide here, we will have those cohorts in that spreadsheet sorted and giving you the information by the 22nd. So again, I'm very hopeful that this is all gonna work out, but until we have all those puzzle pieces, we won't know the exact details. So be patient with us. You've been so great already. We work with such a great community. We're just very thankful and very anxious to continue moving forward with whatever the plan allows. Any other questions, Ms. Brock, for the,
There's a couple. So one of them is from Mr. Tulsovic, and it's about athletics. In terms of when there are games, what is the spectator situation?
It would be limited, and it's going to be based on the actual activity and how the metrics and so forth are playing out to allow people to be there. Ms. Brazzi and I think someone else alluded to that. We don't want large gatherings at this time until we are allowed to. So there's a lot of factors that would go into that decision to allow spectators at events, and that would be communicated to the community as we get that information and we provide it to you as parents. So
one exciting thing, Mr. Tulsovic is ordered, and we're getting cameras in the venues as well to live stream some of these activities, but it might be as simple as each athlete's allowed two spectators to come to the campus to watch an event, or 4, or whatever it allows. And again, so we're being very vague right now about that, but there is going to be opportunity for you to view your son or daughter or the athletes participate in their activities as much as we possibly can.
Thank you. Mr. Lambert, as far as clubs go, if I'm in a club that meets on an A day and I'm a B student, can I still attend the club?
Absolutely, yes. If you are not on the campus the day that your club or activity meets, they will still be using Google Meet for those club meetings, and you'll be joining that way. So yeah, all of our clubs will be just like in the classroom, people at home, people in the room. The same will be true for clubs. And the club sponsors, the teachers that we have that do this, are all very eager to get back into practices and preparing for either competitions, if that's their situation, or just getting back into these student-led clubs that you all have created and allowing you to be distant but have your common interests come back together and have a little fun. So yes, whether you're at home or whether you're totally remote, if you're in that group, you can still participate in the same clubs and activities.
So don't mute yourself yet, because the next one's for you too. How do I know what lunch I have, and do I get a lunch if I'm at home?
Yes, you can have lunch if you're at home. Right now in remote learning, we are on a 1 lunch schedule. Everybody on the campus has second lunch. When we come back in person, that will change, and we will go back to a 2 lunch schedule. And it'll be just like what we've had in years past, where your the subject that you're in the particular period that we have both lunches, which is usually 4th or 5th period, it will be communicated to you by your teacher. So in the past, if you had math or English, you would have first lunch. If you had fine art or social studies, you might have second lunch. We'll go back to that same type of format. And that is based on having as close to 50-50 at each lunch as possible. And we'll just resume that same type of structure. And if you're at home for that, then it'll be the same thing. If you're in that science class, let's say, and science has first lunch on campus, then if you're at home, you have first lunch in your house.
Great. There's a lot of questions about schedules and switching teachers and things like that. So again, we are working very hard not to change schedules, regardless of if you're remote or in person. So our goal is to not move any schedules. So I just want to say that one more time. And if you are remote and you're fully remote, then you would still be in the same class. So essentially on one of Mr. Singer's slides, he had like an A, B, R. And so the R is still in the same class as well. The remote kids stay with their same teacher. I think that might have been the question, so hopefully I answered it. If not, you can email one of us. And then the last group of questions has to do with the Pima County metrics and things like that. So our district did provide a mitigation plan, and it is attached on the CFSD websites. So we do ask that you refer to that for all of that information regarding what happens if a student tests positive and things like that. It's all laid out by the district, and we will be following that protocol at every school. There's charts, there's graphs, there's all different scenarios, very in-depth information. So it does go into many of these questions that I'm looking at. So if you read it and still have questions, of course, feel free to reach out to any of us. And I think we got most all of them. Ms. Brazzi? You're muted, Ms. Brazzi.
Thank you. I was just going to say thank you, Ms. Brock. That's a hard job getting all those questions and trying to sort through them and read them. So, and again, we appreciate you as the audience submitting those questions. So in case we miss something, we definitely want to answer those for you. On the slide, you can see again, we welcome questions. We're happy to address your individual questions about your own child if it wasn't answered in the general conversation tonight about the full school. So email, again, myself, the principal, Mrs. Brazzi, and I can sort them and send them on to folks, or you can individually reach out to any one of our administrators here on the chat. Again, we're also still creating those procedures and protocols, so you will continue to get communications. And I know you've been amazing, all the different surveys we've asked you to do, all the different information that keeps coming at you. I'm sure it's just too much overload in some ways, but I can't stress enough for you to go to the district website about returning to remote learning or returning to in-person learning and looking at that in detail. Again, there's just so much information there, so much detail there. A lot of work's been put into that to try to help you with this decision. And again, we're an email away and happy to call you even if we need to have a longer conversation about a certain circumstance for you or your family. Again, this information about the cohorts, if you're remote, of course, you know what you'll be doing, but if you're in a cohort group, that A or B group with returning to in-person learning, we will send you that information, we believe, about the 22nd of October, what cohort you'll be in and what your schedule will continue to look like. So again, in your survey today that you got specific information about some of the topics we talked about tonight. It's called the CFHS Return to In-Person Fact Sheet. And so again, it's that information. So we're wrapping it up tonight. Again, I just appreciate our school, our teachers, their dedication to your children, and also to parents for being so patient and supportive through this process. We are definitely a team. We want to work with you, and we do appreciate our time teaching and educating your students. Thanks for sharing them with us remotely or in person, and we will stay in communication. Thank you all very much and have a good night.